Thank you very much, Mike, for the kind words, and thank you everyone for taking the time to come and hear this talk. Pete. So I'm Rob Hall, I'm the CEO of Playground XYZ. Today with me I have Dan, who's the programmatic lead at Heineken, and we're going to talk about attention and our links to outcomes and share some results from our latest white paper, as well as some more specific case studies from Heineken who've just been on this journey with us. Before I jump into that, I just want to talk a little bit about attention and kind of setting the scene a bit. There's a lot of attention on attention metrics at the moment. We're at the attention stage. You can see all the branding, lots of companies here, ourselves, Lumen, Adelaide. And basically, the hype around attention, we feel, is because as a metric, it has all these great characteristics. So it's non-sparse, meaning you can measure it on every impression. It's available in real time, so you can kind of sit and watch it on a campaign. It's actionable, you can bid on it, you can optimize to it. And lastly, it's highly predictive of outcomes. Now this last part is where we're going to spend our time today. And the whole thing around attention, watching the journey over the last 4 or 5 years, has been, really the conversation's been, I like attention, but I really want to understand what it does for my brand. And I think the space is moving really quickly forward, and we're going to share some results today that kind of prove that. Now, there's different versions of attention. What is attention? We sit on the IAB panels, the MRC stuff, there's working groups, there's lots of people talking about the metric. As we understand it, and the way we think about it is a very human-based approach. So actual, eyes on ads, how long in seconds did someone look at the ad? And we do that via eye tracking panels and predictive models and all sorts of stuff. Now, there are different flavors of attention and different companies will talk about those. Today, we're talking about attention time, how long someone looked at an ad. Now, the most interesting thing, and when we look back on our white paper that launched maybe 3 or 4 years ago, one of the headline claims in that paper, and we had a paper like that, and I think other vendors did, was more is more. More is more. Go and get as much attention as you possibly can. And it was a really kind of nice, simple statement. But what's happened in the last couple of years, and particularly in the last 12 months, is kind of this question, well, more is more, but at what cost? And do I always need more? And is the marginal gain of the extra attention, does it outweigh the marginal cost increase of paying for that extra attention? And that's shifted the industry into thinking, not just more is more, but how much do I need? What's right for me and my brand? Do I need 1 second of attention? Do I need 10? So today's all about kind of unpacking that. So we're going to link attention time to outcomes, and I just want to talk a little bit about this study we ran. So attention's a metric, as I said before. We asked a bunch of questions. How much attention do you need to drive different brand outcomes, awareness, consideration, purchase intent, recall? And how does that change, that attention requirement change based off the creative or the platform or the size of brand you are? And it's a really, really interesting space. So it was 20,000 people in eye tracking panels with a brand lift survey at the end of it. It was across 3 continents, 8 industry verticals, and I think something like 35 brands. And the ads were run on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. So the results you're seeing today are kind of insights into those platforms as well. Oh, I missed a really key thing. Optimal attention. You heard that word 10 times already, and I'm just getting started. Optimal attention we define as the minimum threshold of attention you need in order to drive a sustainable lift in brand outcomes. So I'm going to explain that a little bit now. Okay, here is what we call an optimal attention curve. So what it aims to do is to basically plot in seconds, attentive seconds of the ad at the bottom, so how much attention time in seconds on one axis, and on the other axis, the lift in brand outcome. And what we're trying to visualize here is to say, okay, here's a brand, they have 20-something% baseline awareness, and actually that awareness doesn't change at all until they hit the 3.5 second mark of attention, and then awareness starts to go up. So there's no value for this brand in advertising that delivers less than 3.5 seconds. But once they clear that optimal attention threshold, up goes awareness or whatever the metric is, and you can start to kind of use that as the happy place to deliver your ads in. So here's a chart from our white paper, which came out just yesterday or the day before. I'm going to put up the link to it at the end. And what's really interesting about this is at a kind of aggregate level, we kind of plot how much attention you need, mean attention threshold, for different metrics like brand awareness, recall, consideration, purchase intent. Now, you can see the pink bars are the average, or the median optimal threshold needed to drive a lift in that outcome. So brand awareness, 1.8 seconds, minimum threshold, and you can see the lift there with about 12 or 15%, and so on through the chart. The first takeaway is different brand outcomes require different levels of attention to move the outcome, right? So if you're chasing consideration, you have a different attention requirement than if you're chasing purchase intent, and if you're chasing awareness, you have a different attention requirement again. But the thing about charts like this, and it is in our white paper, so not to dismiss it, but the thing about charts like this is it hides all the colour of sort of what's happening behind the scenes. This is 100 experiments, 35 brands, 8 verticals. This is that data all mashed together. And, we need to be, as an industry, kind of using these charts like I just put up as a heuristic or a kind of directional guidance on where we're heading, but really kind of double click into it and figure out what it means for your specific brand. And that's why we have Dan up here today. I'm going to pass to him in a second. Dan's going to show you sort of, can Dan take stats like that and just apply them directly to every Heineken campaign? Absolutely not. He might use it as a directional guide on how to think about things, but we're going to show you how it applies down to a brand level. So I'm going to ask you a question. This is a little bit of audience interaction here, but I actually think the videos are broken, so this is going to be interesting. Oh, no, they fixed it. Okay. Here's a quiz. Hands up. Okay, I want to do a hands up thing. Which ad A or ad B, do you think requires less attention to drive awareness? Which one do you think, I know which brand that is sooner and will drive awareness sooner? So I'm going to play the ads real quick. Obviously an ad for Dr. Pepper. All right. And then the next one. Sorry about the sound. I'm not sure if you're getting that. All right, Snickers. There we go. Snickers came in. Now, looking at those two creatives, which one do you think drove awareness sooner? Obviously the Snickers. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously the Fanta one, right? So that just shows a tiny little case study of, yep, we can publish charts and aggregate stats, but along comes a creative and it blows those averages and those medians out of the water and completely changes the attention requirements for that brand. And knowing your Fanta, how would you buy ads differently? Would you buy skip or non-skip? Would you buy bumpers? Would you buy whole different types of ads and think about it differently, knowing awareness is going to peak a lot sooner because of your creative? So I'm going to finish on this chart and then pass to Dan. But this is another bit from the white paper, and it shows again, the optimal curve, attentive time in seconds, and awareness on the vertical axis. And each one of these colours is a different creative from a different brand. Some brands have very high baseline awareness, like the light blue one, huge baseline awareness, and attention requirements were low, and it got a little boost. The purple brand built an ad where the logo and the distinctive assets were way later in the ad, and it required a lot more attention on the ad before it got a noticeable climb in awareness. Very, very different story. And the only difference here, all 15-second YouTube non-skip, same format, same platform, same everything. The only difference is the creative. So this shows you just how kind of varied and nuanced it is and how much it is about marrying creative and media together. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this to Dan from Heineken, who's going to take over.
Cheers, Rob. So just going on to the next slide here, we've got, so just to give a bit of context on the campaign that we had. Rob, can you do next slide, please? Oh. Sorry, man. So looking at the creative that we had, it was a campaign for Cruise Campo. So, cheers. Right. And actually what we did, just to give a bit of context on Cruise Campo is one of our new brands in the portfolio. It's been part of our Heineken portfolio for a number of years now, and it's very big in Andalusia. However, it's very new to the UK. So what we wanted to do was try and understand, you know, how do we try and drive brand awareness across a new brand? In terms of our campaign, it was quite limited. We had programmatic, social, and out of home. And these were the assets that we had. Because it was a new brand, it was very, very focused on just using the logo and product. Oh, sorry. No, sorry. We can skip through the ad, but then essentially it was just the brand and the product. However, when we look at the actual results that we saw off the back of that, we understood that the levels of optimal attention that we had were 0.5 seconds, and then that's when we started to see an increase in the awareness. As you can see below, our awareness levels before that are quite low, around 15%. However, we saw a massive increase in terms of 28% off the back of the creative being viewed for 0.5 seconds. So it's a really, really strong result, and it goes to show that using creative and making sure your brand and your logo and your product is in the earliest piece to make sure you're delivering the right metrics. What else we can take out of this, and it goes back to Rob's point, saying all attention seconds aren't equal necessarily, is that if you look at the attention, the awareness level there, it plateaus at around 2 seconds. So the question for us really is, do we really need to have 15-second creative running across this campaign? If you look at the ad retention, it drops off. So the answer is probably no. And then when we take a look at the actual media delivery off the back of this, we want to make sure that we are using attention as our sort of in-campaign optimization metric now as opposed to viewability, because we know it's such a more robust method. And what we actually saw, the average attention time on our YouTube activity was around 4.5 seconds, which is nearly 9 times higher than our optimal attention that we had in the campaign. So the question it goes to us, again, is do we really need that length of creative? Do we need to change our sort of media strategies? And the answer is probably yes. So what could we do differently in this case? Well, we could probably run 6-second assets that would probably come at a cheaper cost to us, which means then we're actually being more efficient with our buying, and we can reinvest that extra budget into other reach-driving channels, which will help us reach our outcomes. So this is a big, big piece for us to take into our planning. And it goes back to what Rob said before. Not all brands are going to be the same, but we can take some points out of them and use them together. So just moving on to the learning slide that we have now as well. So the takeaways from us are really important. So obviously it's key to be around those environments where attention is often sparse, but how do we use creative best practices there? It really should be standard media for everyone as well. Brand at the front, making sure your product is visible, and making sure you're being seen in the early seconds as well. Next is pick the channels and formats based on the optimal attention requirements. So we know for YouTube, for example, it is that lower threshold. So how do we look at our activity and plan from that? Will it be skippable? Will it be non-skippable? Based off this, if we're running product-led assets, we can probably use skippable campaigns and create those efficiencies. But the last one, probably the most important, is keep learning. So we've been working with Playground on this campaign, and we're going to continue working with them, but we want to understand more. We want to understand how we can take the next steps further. So we've actually got a couple of tests in the pipeline now where we're actually looking at what is the optimal attention level for product to drive consideration, but also looking at our hero assets, what is the optimal levels of attention there to build awareness when you're not necessarily as product focused. So just passing on to Rob now as well for the last slide.
Thanks so much, Dan, for sharing that with us. So that's us today. We're out of time. Here's the link to our white paper. It has really, really great stats in it. If you're interested, we've got the big bar thing. Come say hi. Thanks so much for carving out time from your morning. Really appreciate it. Cheers.